Hi everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder why some ideas catch on and others don't? Or maybe why sometimes the loudest voices seem to win, even if their ideas aren't the best? Well, this new commentary dives into a fascinating concept called social tinkering and asks some really important questions about how complex human societies actually evolve. This is a commentary on a paper by Chatter and Christensen. They propose this idea of social tinkering. Think of it like humans constantly playing around with ideas, tools, and ways of doing things like little tinkerers. This playful exploration, they argue, is how things like language and culture develop. It builds on their previous work on how playful exploration can lead to coordination. And the authors of this commentary agree that it's a useful idea. They even point to other researchers who have talked about similar ideas, like things being built up over time through repeated interactions. Kind of like building a scaffold. So, where does this commentary push back? Well, they say that while social tinkering is about cooperation and playful exploration, it's not the whole story. They argue that the original idea of social tinkering doesn't really account for the really messy parts of human history. Stuff like conflict, violence, and inequality. These aren't just minor details, they say. These have been huge drivers of how complex societies have developed, especially over the last few thousand years, since farming really took off. That's the big question this commentary wants us to think about. They say that in small, early human groups, things might have been more equal, but in bigger, more complex societies, especially in the last few millennia, power has become really concentrated in the hands of a few people. And this power imbalance is super important. Even if lots of new ideas come from everyday people, it is the powerful folks and the institutions they control that often decide which ideas get heard, which ones are adopted, and which ones become popular. Think about the news media. You'd expect it to tell us what is really important, right? But the commentary points out that the news often presents information in a way that serves certain narratives. It's not necessarily that individual journalists are lying, but rather that the system, the way it is set up by powerful people and institutions, tends to promote certain viewpoints. This is called the propaganda model, and it suggests that those whose views align with the powerful are more likely to get their voices amplified. They even give a pretty wild example from September 2025 in the US, where a commentator on MSNBC was fired for saying hateful thoughts lead to hateful actions, while on Fox News, someone suggested executing homeless people who didn't participate in government programs. And that person faced no consequences other than a quick apology. This, they say, is institutional selection shaping what we see and hear. Another really striking example they bring up is the spread of Christianity in medieval Europe. It wasn't just people casually tinkering with their beliefs. Instead, the commentary suggests it became a tool for elites to gain control, to extract resources, and to punish those who didn't go along. This connects to the idea of seeing like a state, a term coined by James Scott. It is about how leaders and governments alter societies to make them easier to observe, control, and manage for their own benefit. So, even if elites are tinkering, it's not a free-for-all playful exploration. It is often about imposing order and control, making things more legible for them. This is the core criticism. The word tinkering makes it sound like people have a lot of free time and freedom to experiment. But when you look at the history of complex societies, much of this so-called tinkering has been constrained by force and motivated by a desire for power. So, the commentary asks who really gets to do the tinkering, and whose creations are the ones that actually stick around. They argue that any theory about how culture becomes complex needs to consider not just the fun, creative side of tinkering, but also the darker, more coercive aspects that have shaped so much of human history. It is about acknowledging that power dynamics and the struggle for survival have played a massive role, not just cooperation and playful exploration. Now, what do I think about this? I think this commentary does a really great job of adding a crucial layer of realism to the idea of social tinkering. It's easy to get excited about the creative potential of humans, and that's important. But we can't ignore the realities of power and conflict. When we talk about cultural evolution, we need to have a complete picture. This means looking at how institutions and those in power can shape what gets developed and what gets accepted, not just how individuals brainstorm and cooperate. The limitations here, as in any commentary, are that it is building on and critiquing existing work. It is not presenting new experimental data itself. The examples it uses are historical and draw on other research. But that is its strength. It's forcing us to think more critically about the assumptions we make when we talk about cultural change. The real-world implications are huge. Understanding how power shapes what ideas become dominant can help us identify when certain narratives are being promoted, for reasons other than pure truth or benefit to the public. It can make us more critical consumers of information. It also highlights the importance of looking for ways to empower marginalized voices and ensure that diverse perspectives have a chance to influence cultural evolution. Future research could definitely try to model these dynamics more explicitly. How exactly do power structures influence the selection of cultural traits? What are the specific mechanisms through which elites shape information flow? It would be fascinating to see computational models that incorporate both cooperative tinkering and coercive selection. So, what do you think? Does this commentary change how you see the idea of social tinkering? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Rubin's Mind Lab for more dives into fascinating research. And as always, keep that curiosity going.